Hi, I'm Amy from the blog Our Amyable Farmhouse. And today I bring you my recipe for a rustic sourdough skillet cornbread. I love this simple recipe because it comes together quick, uses just a few simple ingredients, and is a nourishing addition to our family meal. In recent years, I've switched to using whole food ingredients in my kitchen, and part of that is using whole food flours. Mostly ancient grains is what I like to use. Ancient flours like kamut, spelt, and einkorn. In today's cornbread recipe, I'm using kamut flour. The reason I've chosen to use ancient grains in our household is because the modern wheats today have been hybridized and genetically modified to be a bigger, badder, stronger wheat to produce more faster. And that has proven to create a lot of problems in our modern society with gut health issues, allergies, gluten sensitivities, and so I've chosen to stay away from those kinds of problems for our family. Kamut flour is one of the oldest varieties known to man. It's also referred to as Khorasan flour. It originated out of the Mesopotamia region. Kamut flour is known to be nutrient-rich and full of benefits. I linked to some sources over on my blog post if you'd like to check those out. This skillet cornbread recipe comes together so fast. All I have to do is think a little bit ahead of time in the morning, mix my flour, cornmeal, sourdough starter, and water together and let it soak until I'm ready to bake it for that evening's dinner. Then when I'm ready to bake, I just preheat the oven, add a few more ingredients, and I'm good to go. Now, cooking with cast iron can get a little tricky if you haven't had a lot of experience with it. A good rule of thumb is to remember to have a well-seasoned cast iron. I will link over on the blog post to an article that's very good and helped me learn how to cook with my cast iron. But once you have your cast iron skillet well seasoned, it's a breeze to use, and I don't use anything else now. Another trick to cooking with cast iron is to make sure that you use lots of fat. Before I pour in my cornbread batter, I'll make sure that there's lots of fat in my skillet as I'm preheating the skillet, and then I just swirl it around to evenly coat the bottom of the skillet. I like to serve this cornbread with a hearty stew or comforting soup on those fall and winter evenings. Leftover cornbread in the morning with our breakfast is really yummy. I also use this cornbread batter to pour on top of a skillet meal. For example, if I'm making like what our family calls tamale pie, it's just like a Mexican dish where I've browned up some meat with some taco seasonings and some veggies, maybe onions, carrots, peppers, and then I'll use the cornbread topping to pour on top and then throw it in the oven and finish baking it. All right, so in the morning I will mix together my cornbread so that it has all day to soak and sour and break down those phytic acids to make it a more nutritious and healthy cornbread to consume. So to my mixing bowl, I add 1.5 cups kamut flour, 1.5 cups cornmeal, half a cup of sourdough starter, and 1.5 cups milk or water. And I stir that together really well. And then I'm going to use a tea towel to cover it, and I just set it aside in my kitchen to let it soak all day until I'm ready to bake it. When I'm ready to bake my cornbread, I simply preheat my oven to 350 degrees, and I stick my cast iron skillet in there as well. And to my cornbread mix, I add the rest of my wet ingredients, stir to combine well, and then I sprinkle on the rest of the dry ingredients. And again, mix that thoroughly until combined. Here you can see I've got my dinner roasting on the bottom rack, and I pull out my preheated cast iron. I added some bacon grease to my skillet while it was preheating, and I just swirled it around to evenly coat the bottom and up the sides of my skillet. Then I just simply pour all my batter into my skillet very carefully, trying not to splatter or touch the skillet as it is very hot. And as you can see, I'm going to scrape out every last ounce of batter because I can't help myself. Otherwise, I just feel like it's wasting, I guess. Again, for the love of all things not burnt. People, remember, the skillet is hot, so don't touch it. I can't tell you how many times I've almost touched it without a hot pad. Yikes. After about 30 minutes of baking, pull out your skillet and let the cornbread rest for about 10 minutes, and then slice into it for a little piece of corn heaven. I hope you give this recipe a try and get to using your sourdough starter. If you haven't made a sourdough starter, check out my link below to a post that I have on how to make your own. Thank you so much for joining me today. If you're new to my channel, please hit that subscribe button. I bring a new video each week on simple food, simple living, simply handmade. Thanks for stopping by our Amyable Farmhouse.